Guess who loves you? No, don't answer too quickly. Because the truth is far more surprising than you think. There is someone who has been carrying your name in their heart for much longer than you realize. Someone who has tried to move on. Someone who has told themselves 100 times that they should forget you. Someone who has pretended that you don't matter. Yet every time they try to walk away emotionally, something pulls them back. And tonight, we're going to uncover the signs, the hidden emotions, and the shocking truth behind the person who cannot stop thinking about you. Stay with me until the end, because the final revelation changes everything. What you're about to hear may explain strange events that have been happening in your life recently. The unexpected memories. The sudden emotions. The feeling that someone is thinking about you even when nobody is around. The strange coincidences. The dreams. The unexplained pull. These things rarely happen without a reason. And the reason may be standing much closer to your life than you imagine. Now here's the first shocking revelation. The person who loves you is not necessarily the person everyone expects. In fact, if I asked you to guess right now, there is a strong chance you would choose the wrong person. Because the deepest feelings are often the quietest. The strongest emotions are often hidden. The loudest people are not always the ones who truly care. Sometimes the person who loves you most is the person who watches silently. The person who notices details nobody else notices. The person who remembers things you forgot telling them. The person who pays attention when everyone else is distracted. Think about that for a moment. Who always remembers small things about you? Who notices when your mood changes? Who asks if you're okay before anyone else does? Who becomes unusually happy when you succeed? Who becomes strangely quiet when you talk about someone else? There is a reason those signs matter. Love reveals itself through attention. And attention cannot be faked forever. The person we're talking about has been paying attention for a very long time. Longer than you realize. Much longer. Now here's something even more surprising. This person has imagined conversations with you that never happened. They have replayed your interactions in their mind. They have wondered what you meant by certain words. They have analyzed messages. They have remembered moments that seemed ordinary to you but felt extraordinary to them. Imagine that. A moment you forgot. A sentence you barely remember saying. A smile that lasted only seconds. Yet those memories stayed with them. Some people enter a room and leave no trace. But you left a mark. And that mark never disappeared. The strange part? You may not even know it happened. Because this person became skilled at hiding their emotions. Very skilled. They learned how to smile normally. Act normally. Talk normally. Behave normally. But behind that calm exterior was a storm of feelings they never fully expressed. Why? Because they were afraid. Afraid of rejection. Afraid of embarrassment. Afraid of losing the connection they already had with you. Sometimes people stay silent not because they don't care, but because they care too much. And that silence creates one of the biggest mysteries in relationships. The mystery of hidden love. Now let's go deeper. There is a question this person asks themselves repeatedly. What if? What if they had told you sooner? What if they had been more honest? What if they had taken a chance? What if they had revealed their feelings? Those questions continue echoing inside their mind. Even now. Especially now. Because lately something has changed. The feelings they tried to suppress have become stronger. The emotions they tried to ignore have become impossible to ignore. And the signs are beginning to appear. You may have noticed them. Perhaps you've caught someone staring unexpectedly. Perhaps you've received a message at a strange time. Perhaps someone suddenly became more interested in your life. Perhaps someone who disappeared returned. Perhaps someone who was quiet became more present. These things rarely happen by accident. The heart always searches for a way to reveal itself. Even when the person tries to hide it. Now here's a revelation that surprises many people. The person who loves you admires something about you that you often overlook. Not your appearance. Not your status. Not your achievements. Something deeper. Something real. Something authentic. They admire your heart. Your resilience. Your ability to keep going. Your kindness. Your strength during difficult times. The way you continue moving forward even when life becomes challenging. You see, people who truly care notice things others miss. They see beyond appearances. They see beyond masks. They see the person underneath. And that's exactly what happened here. At some point, they stopped seeing who you appeared to be. And started seeing who you really are. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment affection became admiration. And admiration slowly became love. But the story doesn't end there. Because there is another secret. This person is not only thinking about you. They are comparing everyone else to you. Think about how powerful that is. Every new connection. Every new conversation. Every new possibility. Somehow gets measured against the standard you created. And that comparison keeps bringing them back to the same conclusion. Nobody feels quite like you. Nobody creates the same emotional impact. Nobody leaves the same impression. Nobody makes them feel what you make them feel. That's why forgetting you became difficult. Much more difficult than they expected. Now I want you to pay close attention to the next part. Because this is where the story becomes truly interesting. There was a moment when this person believed they had finally moved on. They convinced themselves they were finished. They told themselves it was over. They focused elsewhere. They distracted themselves. They tried everything. Then something happened. Maybe they saw your name. Maybe they saw a photo. Maybe they heard a song. Maybe they remembered a conversation. And suddenly all those feelings returned. Not weaker. Stronger. Much stronger. That shocked them. Because they realized the feelings had never left. They had only been sleeping. Waiting. Quietly waiting. Now imagine discovering that after all this time. Imagine realizing your heart never actually moved on. Imagine understanding that someone still matters. That realization changes people. It changes priorities. It changes decisions. It changes the future. And that's exactly what's happening here. The person who loves you is beginning to understand what their heart has been trying to tell them all along. You matter. More than they admitted. More than they expected. More than they planned. And that realization is creating momentum. Momentum often leads to action. Which brings us to another important revelation. Communication. Watch for communication. Because when hidden feelings become too powerful, people start finding reasons to reach out. Sometimes the reason sounds casual. Sometimes it sounds random. Sometimes it sounds insignificant. But the real reason is emotional. The heart wants connection. The heart wants closeness. The heart wants another chance. The heart wants to know if the door is still open. That is why messages appear unexpectedly. That is why conversations restart. That is why people return. And sometimes they return when you least expect it. Now here's something even deeper. The person who loves you has seen multiple versions of you. They have seen you happy. They have seen you frustrated. They have seen you hopeful. They have seen you discouraged. They have seen your strengths. They have seen your flaws. And despite seeing all of it, they stayed. That matters. Because real affection grows after reality appears. Not before. Anyone can love an illusion. Anyone can love a fantasy. But loving a real person? That is different. That is rare. That is powerful. And that's what makes this connection stand out. Now let's talk about timing. Because timing has been one of the biggest obstacles in this story. There were moments when feelings existed but circumstances didn't cooperate. Moments when opportunities appeared and disappeared. Moments when fear won. Moments when silence won. Moments when hesitation won. Yet despite all of that, the connection survived. That tells you something important. Some emotions fade quickly. Others refuse to disappear. The ones that refuse to disappear usually carry meaning. A deeper meaning. A lasting meaning. And that is exactly why we're having this conversation today. Because the feelings we're talking about have endured. And endurance reveals truth. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine this person sitting alone at night. No distractions. No noise. No obligations. Just their thoughts. Who enters their mind? Who appears in those quiet moments? Who occupies their imagination? Who inspires both hope and uncertainty? The answer is the same. You. That's why this story continues. That's why the emotions remain alive. That's why the future still holds possibilities. And now we're approaching the biggest revelation of all. The answer to the title. Guess who loves you? Ready? The person who loves you is someone whose actions have already been speaking for their heart. Someone whose attention keeps returning to you. Someone who remembers more than they admit. Someone who cares more than they show. Someone who feels more than they reveal. Someone who has tried to ignore their emotions and failed. Someone who still wonders about you. Someone who still hopes. Someone who still imagines what could happen if the truth finally came out. And the most surprising part? Deep down, you may already know who they are. Perhaps a face just entered your mind. Perhaps a name appeared instantly. Perhaps your intuition whispered the answer before your logic could respond. Pay attention to that. Because sometimes the heart recognizes what the mind is still trying to understand. And if this message found you today, perhaps it wasn't random. Perhaps it arrived exactly when it needed to. Because every story reaches a turning point. Every hidden feeling reaches a moment of truth. Every unanswered question eventually finds an answer. And somewhere right now, someone is thinking about you. Wondering about you. Remembering you. Missing you. And maybe, just maybe, preparing to reveal what has been hidden for far too long. The question is not whether the feelings exist. The question is what happens when those feelings can no longer stay secret. And that answer may arrive sooner than anyone expects. Now listen carefully. Because the story becomes even more unbelievable from this point forward. Most people think love begins with a grand moment. A dramatic confession. A perfect meeting. A life-changing event. But that's rarely how it happens. Real feelings often begin in silence. In ordinary moments. In small interactions nobody else notices. And that's exactly how this person's feelings for you started. At first, you were simply someone they knew. Someone they talked to. Someone they occasionally thought about. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing seemed significant. But then something changed. Slowly. Quietly. Unexpectedly. They started looking forward to your presence. A message from you suddenly made their day better. A conversation with you stayed in their mind longer than it should have. A smile from you felt more important than it should have. And before they understood what was happening, their heart had already made a decision. A decision their mind wasn't ready for. That was the beginning. The moment everything shifted. The moment you became different from everyone else. And here's the shocking part. They fought against it. Yes. The person who loves you actually tried not to love you. They tried to convince themselves they were imagining things. They tried to focus elsewhere. They tried to be logical. Practical. Reasonable. But feelings don't disappear just because someone wants them to. The more they resisted, the stronger the emotions became. And eventually they reached a point where they couldn't deny the truth anymore. You mattered. A lot. More than they wanted to admit. Now imagine carrying that secret. Imagine waking up every day with feelings you cannot fully express. Imagine seeing someone important to you and pretending everything is normal. Imagine wondering if they feel the same way. Imagine questioning every interaction. Every smile. Every message. Every conversation. That uncertainty becomes exhausting. Yet they continued carrying it. Day after day. Month after month. Maybe even year after year. Because some feelings become part of who we are. And that's exactly what happened here. Now let's talk about the signs. Because this person has been revealing their emotions in ways they probably don't even realize. One sign is curiosity. They want to know how you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what's happening in your life. Not because they're nosy, because they care. People naturally become interested in what matters to them. And you matter. Another sign? They notice your absence. Most people notice when someone arrives. But people who care deeply notice when someone isn't there. They feel the difference. The silence. The missing energy. The empty space. And that's exactly what happens when you're not around. Something feels incomplete. Something feels different. Now here's another revelation. The person who loves you has imagined a future involving you. Maybe they never admitted it. Maybe they never spoke about it. But they've imagined it. Future conversations. Future experiences. Future memories. Future possibilities. The human mind doesn't create those visions for people it doesn't care about. It creates them for people who occupy a special place in the heart. And whether they admit it or not, you occupy that place. A very special place. Now here's where things become emotional. There were times when this person felt they had missed their chance. Times when they believed the opportunity had passed. Times when they thought someone else would become more important to you. Those moments hurt. More than they showed. More than they admitted. Because hidden love experiences hidden pain. Pain nobody sees. Pain nobody understands. Pain that remains invisible. And yet they carried it quietly. Without demanding attention. Without creating drama. Without asking for sympathy. They simply continued caring. And that tells you something powerful about the depth of their feelings. Because genuine affection survives disappointment. It survives distance. It survives uncertainty. It survives time. Now I want you to think about something. Have you ever felt like someone was trying to tell you something without actually saying it? A look that lasted slightly too long. A conversation that felt different. A strange tension. An unusual connection. A feeling that words were missing from the interaction. If you've experienced that, there's a reason. Sometimes emotions become visible before they become verbal. The heart speaks long before the mouth does. And this person's heart has been speaking for a very long time. Even if no words were spoken. Now here's another secret. This person admires your strength more than you realize. Not just the strength everyone sees. The hidden strength. The strength you show when life becomes difficult. The strength you show when nobody is watching. The strength you show after disappointment. The strength you show after heartbreak. The strength you show when things don't go according to plan. Those moments left an impression. A deep impression. Because people reveal their true character during difficult times. And what this person saw made them respect you even more. Respect eventually became admiration. Admiration eventually became affection. Affection eventually became love. And here we are. Now let's talk about something fascinating. The person who loves you has probably had opportunities to focus on someone else. They've met other people. Talked to other people. considered other possibilities. Life continued moving forward. Yet somehow your presence remained. Why? Because connections are not measured by time alone. They're measured by impact. And your impact was unforgettable. You became part of their emotional story. Part of their thoughts. Part of their memories. Part of their future hopes. And removing that isn't easy. In fact, sometimes it's impossible. Now pay close attention to this next part. Because it may explain something you've been sensing recently. The emotional energy around this connection is changing. For a long time, silence dominated the story. For a long time, hesitation dominated the story. For a long time, uncertainty dominated the story. But now something is shifting. The desire to know the truth is becoming stronger than the fear of hearing it. And that's a very important change. Because every confession begins there. Every revelation begins there. Every emotional breakthrough begins there. When curiosity becomes stronger than fear. When hope becomes stronger than doubt. When the possibility of happiness becomes more powerful than the possibility of rejection. That moment changes everything. And this person may be approaching that moment right now. Right now. As you listen to these words. Now imagine how many times they've wondered. What if they feel the same way? That question has appeared more times than you can imagine. And every time it appears, hope returns. Even if only for a moment. Hope keeps emotions alive. Hope keeps people waiting. Hope keeps people believing. And this person still has hope. More than they admit. More than they reveal. Now here's perhaps the biggest secret they've never told anyone. It's not just that they love you. It's that they trust you emotionally. And that's rare. Very rare. People can be attracted to many individuals. But emotional trust is different. Emotional trust means feeling safe. Feeling understood. Feeling accepted. Feeling connected. And those feelings cannot be forced. They develop naturally. Slowly. Over time. Which is exactly what happened here. Now as we move toward the final part of this story, remember something important. Not every meaningful connection begins with certainty. Many begin with questions. With confusion. With hesitation. With silence. Yet those very connections often become the most unforgettable. Because they grow from something real. Something genuine. Something deeper than appearances. And the connection we're discussing today has all the signs of that depth. The signs are there. The feelings are there. The memories are there. The hopes are there. The unanswered questions are there. And perhaps very soon, the truth will be there too. Because secrets cannot remain hidden forever. Especially the secrets carried by the heart. Sooner or later, the heart demands honesty. Sooner or later, feelings seek expression. Sooner or later, love finds its voice. And when that moment arrives, everything may change. In ways neither of you expected. In ways neither of you planned. In ways neither of you will ever forget. So keep your eyes open. Pay attention to the signs. Notice the small details. Notice who consistently appears. Notice who remembers. Notice who cares. Notice who stays. Because the answer to the question, "Guess who loves you?" may already be standing much closer than you think. And now, we arrive at the part of the story that most people never see. The hidden battle taking place inside the heart of the person who loves you. Because while everyone else sees the outside version of them, the calm version, the normal version, the version that appears completely fine, there is another version nobody sees. A version filled with questions. A version filled with hope. A version filled with emotions they rarely discuss. And every time your name crosses their mind, that hidden world becomes active again. Memories return. Feelings return. Possibilities return. The future begins replaying itself in their imagination. Not because they are trying to force it, but because the connection remains unfinished. There is something powerful about unfinished emotions. They refuse to disappear. They linger. They wait. They search for answers. And that's exactly what has been happening. For a long time, this person believed they could simply ignore what they felt. But the heart has its own plans. The heart doesn't follow logic. It follows meaning. And somehow, somewhere along the way, you became meaningful to them. More meaningful than they expected. Now imagine this. Imagine receiving good news. Who is the first person you want to tell? Imagine facing a difficult day. Who is the person you wish understood? Imagine achieving a major goal. Who is the person you hope notices? For this person, the answer keeps leading back to you. Again and again. No matter how many times they try to redirect their attention. No matter how many distractions life offers. No matter how much time passes. The answer remains the same. You. And that's not something they planned. It's simply what happened. Now here's a revelation that may surprise you. The person who loves you has already pictured what it would feel like if you suddenly disappeared from their life completely. And that thought terrified them. Because sometimes we don't fully understand someone's value until we imagine losing them. When they imagined that possibility, they understood something important. You were never ordinary to them. Never. You became part of their emotional world. Part of their routine. Part of their hopes. Part of their future thoughts. And once someone reaches that place in our hearts, forgetting them becomes incredibly difficult. Now let's talk about coincidence. Or what many people call coincidence. Have you noticed how certain people seem to keep reappearing? Certain conversations keep happening. Certain connections refuse to fade away. Sometimes life keeps bringing people back into our awareness for a reason. Not always. But sometimes. And when that happens repeatedly, it deserves attention. Because meaningful connections often survive circumstances that should have ended them. Distance doesn't erase them. Time doesn't erase them. Silence doesn't erase them. They continue existing beneath the surface. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for clarity. Waiting for courage. And perhaps that moment is closer than anyone realizes. Now imagine being in their position. Imagine carrying feelings that continue growing. Imagine wanting answers. Imagine wondering if the door is open. Imagine questioning whether the timing is finally right. Those thoughts have become increasingly difficult for them to ignore. Which is why their attention keeps returning to you. Not because they are trying to force anything. Because their heart keeps pointing in the same direction. Your direction. Now here is another truth. The person who loves you respects you more than they express. Respect is one of the strongest foundations of genuine affection. Without respect, feelings fade. Without respect, attraction weakens. Without respect, connections collapse. But respect creates stability. And this person respects who you are. Not because you're perfect. Not because you've never made mistakes. But because you've remained yourself. Authentic. Real. Human. And those qualities have become increasingly rare. Which is exactly why they stand out. Now let's go even deeper. There have been moments when this person wanted to tell you everything. Every feeling. Every thought. Every emotion. Every hope. Every fear. But then doubt appeared. Questions appeared. Uncertainty appeared. And the words remained trapped inside. Yet even though the words never came out, the feelings never left. That's important. Because silence does not always mean absence of emotion. Sometimes silence means the emotion is so powerful that the person doesn't know how to express it. And that may be exactly what's happened here. Now picture this scene. Late at night. The world is quiet. Distractions are gone. Responsibilities are finished. And the mind is free to wander. Who appears in those moments? Who occupies the empty spaces? Who becomes the center of thought? For this person, the answer keeps returning to you. Not every night. Not every moment. But often enough to matter. Often enough to reveal the truth. And the truth is simple. Their feelings are real. Much more real than they intended. Now here's something fascinating. People often think love is proven through dramatic actions. Huge gestures. Perfect speeches. Grand announcements. But in reality, love often reveals itself through consistency. Through showing up. Through remembering. Through caring. Through staying. And that's exactly what this person has done. Whether you noticed or not. Whether they admitted it or not. They stayed emotionally connected far longer than logic suggested they should. That says everything. Now we're approaching the final revelation. The moment this entire story has been leading toward. Ready? The reason this person cannot fully let go is because your connection gave them something they couldn't find elsewhere. A feeling. A comfort. A sense of understanding. A sense of possibility. A sense of being seen. And once people experience something meaningful, they naturally search for it again. That's why your presence remains important. That's why your memory remains alive. That's why your name still carries emotional weight. Because you represent something significant in their story. Something irreplaceable. Now here's the question that changes everything. What happens next? Nobody can answer that with certainty. But one thing is clear. The emotions have reached a point where remaining silent is becoming increasingly difficult. The truth wants to be known. The heart wants to be heard. The connection wants clarity. And when those three things come together, life often surprises people. In extraordinary ways. Unexpected ways. Beautiful ways. So if you've been wondering why someone keeps appearing in your thoughts, why certain signs keep showing up, why certain energies feel unfinished, perhaps now you understand. Perhaps the puzzle pieces are beginning to fit together. Perhaps the mystery is becoming less mysterious. Because the answer has been quietly revealing itself this entire time. The person who loves you is not someone whose feelings disappeared. Not someone whose attention faded. Not someone whose heart moved on completely. Their feelings survived. Their care survived. Their hope survived. And now they stand at a crossroads. A crossroads between silence and honesty. Between fear and courage. Between wondering and knowing. And sooner or later, everyone reaches a moment where they must choose. A moment where they stop imagining possibilities and start creating them. A moment where hidden emotions become spoken words. A moment where questions finally receive answers. That moment may not arrive today. It may not arrive tomorrow. But when it arrives, it will explain everything. Every sign. Every coincidence. Every feeling. Every unanswered question. And when that day comes, you may look back at this moment and realize something astonishing. The clues were there all along. The feelings were there all along. The connection was there all along. And the answer to the question, "Guess who loves you?" was closer than you ever imagined. Much closer. Closer than your doubts. Closer than your fears. Closer than your expectations. And perhaps, closer than your heart is finally ready to admit.